the right way, I might say. Nobody doing it better, y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles, got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the team.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another sit down recap show with Malik Wright. I'm your host, Malik Wright, joined by my co-host Daniel Alameda. We've even got Zim Hude joining us on the show today. But before we jump into everything and get into everything, make sure you guys do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or upload content from TWSN Studios. Listen, we all got the news this morning. I got the news 2 weeks ago, but Lou Anarumo is on his way out in Cincinnati. He's officially been let go of his duties as defensive coordinator. Shock to some, shock to I would say some of the players. Overall, it's one of those things where you could be a talented coach, you could be a guy that can make it in this league, but you are what your record says you are, what your numbers say you are. Unfortunate. I certainly have a lot of thoughts on how things have sort of played out in Cincinnati. I'll get to a lot of those. Danny, I want to get your initial thoughts on the Bengals moving off of defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo. On this show, we're going to be talking about that, but we're also going to be talking about who are the ideal replacements, who are the potential replacements, and how this defense moves forward. Because obviously with a change at defensive coordinator and to the staff, you're more than likely going to see change to the personnel. But Daniel, I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, so there's a lot of thoughts. And I think just from scouring the internet, once again, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Just from scouring the internet and seeing what the overall reaction is, and this is something I do want to dive into. The main point that people are saying, this is something even myself, I'm curious to have this discussion, is it seems like people are okay with the firing for two reasons. One of the reasons I'm totally on board with, and that's saying change has to have been made. And that's what I agree. There's a season where you've got an MVP candidate, you've got the Triple Crown winner, you've got a Defensive Player of the Year potential candidate, and you missed the playoffs. And to that, I agree with you of the sentiment that there's got to be change. You can't have a season like that and just expect to run it back and have there be all peaches and roses. But the one flaw that I have with that is it seems like the conversation isn't even around Zac Taylor. And is that a thing where it's Mike Brown or Duke Tobin, standing by their guy? Or is it a thing that they don't want to mess up the chemistry that Zac Taylor has, or they don't want to make a drastic decision because they're going to give him one last shot? Maybe that's the case, right? And to that, I would say, okay, if you want to continue this for another year, you just got to make sure this upcoming season is very clear. I would have that conversation saying, hey, just because Lou's gone, just because Hobby's gone, just because Frank Pollock's gone, doesn't mean we're not going to be looking at you and saying, Zac, you're safe. You're the head man. So the point number one, like I said, is changes should have been made. Do I think it should have been just Lou Anarumo? No. But number two, and this is the point I think is the most critical to actually dive into, is was this a problem of Lou Anarumo not being able to develop these guys, or was it more of a problem of the front office not bringing in the correct talent? And I feel like that's where the two sides are kind of split. That's where I see a lot of people are saying, well, he had Miles Murphy, he had Dax Hill. And then on the other side saying, well, they didn't bring back DJ Reader, they didn't bring back Jesse Bates. And I think both sides can be true. So that's where my biggest frustration with this is you're firing a guy, Lou Anarumo, where I feel like this was a flaw of the front office. And that's another part of the conversation saying, hey, who's really at fault? It is a cumulative effort, right? Zac Taylor, I believe, is at fault. I believe Lou Anarumo was at fault for, points in the season. I do believe that the front office was at fault. I believe, though, the way that this is going to get fixed, I don't think it'll be fixed because of the new defensive coordinator. And what I mean by that is, I think the way that this can be fixed, I think the way the defense can be fixed this upcoming season, next 2 seasons, is how you bring in the talent and what you do with that talent. So that's going to be, hey, who do you add in free agency? We can pinpoint, and Malik, you did a good job of that, in the video, multiple 4, 5, 6 weeks back, saying, hey, this past free agency, it was a flop, right? Von Bell was a flop. Sheldon Rankins, obviously his injury or his illness was a flop. Multiple other players flopped in free agency. And then you look at last year, your prized possession, right? The Nick Scott signing was a major flop. So that's where I look at how you can potentially fix this defense. We're going to dive into, the defense coordinators, who they can bring in, whether they go with a young, new mind, or whether they go with a veteran guy who's been there, done it before. But the biggest thing, I think the pinpoint really is the difference of, was it Lou Anarumo's fault that he didn't develop Miles Murphy, that he didn't develop the Dax Hill, that he couldn't develop these guys, that it took too long to play Jordan Battle? And I just don't feel like that was the number one issue on this team this year, right? You go look at their defense this season, where they were ranked. They weren't ranked high. They were ranked 26th, 25th. But there were many points in this season to where we could say, hey, and this is what I looked at. I said, hey, one of the biggest issues on this team wasn't just the defense, but it was late in the game. And I believe a lot of that has to fall back on the head coach. And that's my frustration, right? You look at before they went on this run, before they went on this 5-game stretch, they were 1-7 in 1-score games. I don't believe that falls back on solely Lou Anarumo. I believe that falls back a lot on Zac Taylor. So that's how I'm looking at this whole situation. I think that the offense, to put it bluntly, I think the offense and Zac Taylor, I think they're getting scapegoated right now. I think they're benefiting from having Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And that's the shitty part about this business, Malik. That's the shitty part about, what the NFL brings. You go look at another example, right? A guy I was extremely high on, a guy I thought, could have been the Bengals' potential next defensive, coordinator, the Panthers defense coordinator, Evero. And you look at what he did. He had the number 2 ranked defense when they had Brian Burns, when they had Derek Brown, when they had J.C. Horn, when they had Dante Jackson. And this past season, Derek Brown got hurt. The defense was hurt. The defense didn't have talent, and they were the 30th ranked defense. But what did Dave Canales do? What did the Carolina Panthers do? They brought back their defense coordinator. And obviously 2 completely different situations, but I believe that that's the reality of the NFL. And I believe that's the reality of defense, to be honest with you. I think defense is a much easier position from a coaching standpoint to say, hey, if you don't have good players, it is much harder to have success. Brian Flores has done it, but I believe Brian Flores is one of the top 2 defense coordinators in the NFL. I believe he's an exception. So I say all that to say, you're going to have your defense coordinators, like Robert Saleh. There's a bunch of other names out there, but I truly believe this conversation starts about Duke Tobin. What do they do this offseason to add to that defense? Do they bring back Trey Hendrickson? They still got to re-sign him for multiple seasons. Do they give him that contract this offseason? Do they bring in a tag team partner in the first round, at the edge rusher position? Do they bolster that cornerback room? What does the front office do? And I believe that's going to be the start to the potential solutions. But yeah, Malik, you want me to get into some of these coordinators?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So there's a bunch of different names that, people are obviously throwing out. And I think that, like I said,
you know what? Before you do that, actually, let me do that, because Zim will be joining us on the show too. While we got everybody here, do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications, so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content from the TWSN studios. I'll say this. This is the unfortunate part of the National Football League. It's the unfortunate part of the National Football League, and I know a lot of people have their opinions and their comments and their thoughts on stuff. And I definitely want you all to voice them in the comment section if you can as well. But my thoughts are, Daniel, and I feel like there were some significant moves that needed to be made. Right. I would agree with you, 619 Bengals fan. Stubbornness is probably what led to his undoing, unfortunately. But I can't shake the thought that, whoever you bring in as the next defensive coordinator, you certainly got to swing big. You certainly hope that you're grabbing someone that wants the job in Cincinnati. And what I mean by that it isn't just, hey, you got Joe Burrow as the quarterback. You have a loaded offense. It's not just as simple as that. You're going to want to see the front office is going to have to sell whatever said defensive coordinator is on the vision of the defense. Meaning, are you willing to spend? Are you willing to go out there and acquire the talent? Because it doesn't matter if you hire Dennis Allen. It doesn't matter if you hire Robert Saleh. Will the results garner what you want them to with the same talent that you have on the team? That's the real question that you have to ask. There is no smoke and mirrors here. You allow elite to great defensive talent walk out the door, and you did little to replace those guys. You tried to replace those guys with back-end draft picks. These are conversations that need to be had. And for me, I think that the struggle is you're going to have a hard time trying to get a notable defensive guy in the building. Because make no mistake about it, Zac Taylor is on the hot seat. You don't get an opportunity to gut your staff, play the blame game multiple times. You get one shot at this. Get one shot at this. And the way I see it is, Zach, whoever you go out there and hire, it has to be someone of significance, I would say. It can't just be, hey, we're going out right now and we're bringing in, a linebacker coach or somebody like that. You need somebody that is proven, that has done it at a high level. That is what you need. For those people that are out there clamoring for a Robert Saleh, I don't know how keen Zac Taylor would be on bringing in a guy, in my honest opinion, who is young, who's energetic, who if you start the season off slow or you struggle, whatever the case may be, the front office won't be looking at that guy. The front office will be looking at you. So the way I understand how Zach works, why would he bring in a guy that could potentially be the guy to unseat him? Respectfully. Anybody that he brings in will have to be a veteran defensive coordinator, a guy that has had his opportunity to be a head coach in the league. Guys like a Mike Zimmer, guys like a Dennis Allen, guys like an Al Golden. That's what comes to mind for me. Simple as that. I don't know if you're going out there, and I don't know if you're getting a Robert Saleh of the world or one of these young defensive minds. Aubrey Pleasant is a name that I want people to keep an eye on too. Yeah. But then you have to ask yourself, would said defensive coordinator tie themselves to a lame duck coach, to a coach that's in a prove-it year? That's going to be the ultimate question. Because the way I see it is, you got people like Sean Brennan in the comment section are saying, hey, fire Zach. Respectfully, though, for me. Respectfully. I don't know if you can say fire Zach right now, and then you're going to, who for me, it's not an obvious upgrade. Some of the obvious upgrades you sort of let, kind of pass you by already to a degree, or there's no obvious upgrade. Anybody you hire would be a first-year head coach, right? Or would be a vet. So I understand the optic of sticking with a Zac Taylor. I get that. Do I love it? No. But I understand the optics behind it. And we could deal with that when the time comes. Right now, what we got to deal with is the Bengals got to hire an offensive line coach, a defensive line coach, a linebackers coach, and a defensive coordinator. That's what they got to hire. But all that being said, who is going to want to tie themselves to that? Because this defense is a project. This front office is going to have to sell whoever that defensive coordinator is on the vision for the defense. You can't just say we're going to give you this exact core pieces and you're going to win with that. Because what makes me different from Lou Anarumo? We're going to talk about some of those names because I do think there are some names out there that are very, very intriguing. But honestly, Bengals fans, you should want a guy, respectfully, the way I see it, you should want a guy that has experience. You should want a guy that has done it before. If that leads you down the path of an Al Golden, if that leads you down the path of a Mike Zimmer or somebody else, and there's some other names that I want to go over as well, then so be it. You're not trying to find the next sexy head coach, right? You're hoping that could be Zac Taylor. You're trying to find a guy that has skin in the game, that has respectability amongst the players, amongst around the league, that has shown he could do it at the highest level. It's not a popularity contest. I don't care about rah speeches. You want a guy that can provide a bit of a consistency, that isn't dealing with dysfunction, that has a clear vision from the front office. That is what you want. That's what you want. You want somebody that has done it. Accountability is going to be so huge going forward. Because no coach in their right mind is going to sign themselves over to a staff, right, that isn't all in on fixing this defense. That's my thoughts. Daniel, what are your thoughts on what I've said?
Yeah, I think that you're right. And that's where I do think that it is an attractive job when it comes to looking at these other coordinator positions that are open around the league, right? There's still not many defensive coordinator positions that are completely open yet, but I believe some of these, positions like the Jacksonville Jaguars without Doug Peterson, I think Press Taylor's gone. I think their DC's gone. I think these positions are going to open up, but the fact that I believe this is, getting as much traction. Maybe I'm just, reading too much into it, but this is getting a lot of traction around the league. And I feel like it's because of the fact that people understand what Joe Burrow and what Jamar Chase bring to an organization. They understand where this Bengals team is right now. So I think that it is an attractive job. And I think that there are going to be coaches that are looking to, come to Cincinnati. But my fear is, and this is something I've learned, is I do think that this next guy could just be a guy that's, and I hope it's not like this, but could just be a guy that Zac Taylor is tied to and has ties with in the past. But I hope that's not the case, right? I hope that you find yourself in a position, because when you look at 2019, when they went out and they interviewed all these guys, and the first wave came and the first wave went. The second wave came and the second wave went. I don't feel like that's going to be the case this year. I feel like the 2019 Cincinnati Bengals versus now, you're going to interview whether it's 4 or 5 guys. And I doubt there's going to be coaches that are really going to be full on turning this position down. So I think that one of these bigger names could come. Maybe it's not a Robert Saleh, and he's obviously the name that everybody loves. You look at the Jets defense this year, right? They were literally a top 2 defense with him. And as soon as he left, they went to absolute crap. But you look at the talent they had: Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner. They have 2 very, very, very good linebackers. I think that they've got a ton of talent there. So that's where my concern is with this, is saying, hey, I do think that they're going to have their pick at a bunch of these guys. Like you said, I think that Mike Zimmer is an interesting name. He's the guy, that the Cowboys defense, from what I saw early on in the season, they were a good defense. I think that they lost a lot because just from being a new coordinator, Dan Quinn left. They really only had Micah Parsons. Their cornerbacks were injured. I think that he's a fascinating name. And I really do think that the name you brought up, I think Aubrey Pleasant is the guy that, I'm going to kind of be circling on, saying, hey, that is a realistic option. You went and, look back at what the Los Angeles Rams team did in 2018. They went to the Super Bowl, and I thought it was fascinating just to go and look at where all those people are on that coaching staff. The cornerbacks coach was now the Panthers defense coordinator. You look at the guys who were in the scouting department: Brad Holmes, Ray Agnew. What did? They went to Detroit and they built an absolute super team with them. You got Zac Taylor was on that staff. Now he's a head coach. Aubrey Pleasant is the one guy on that staff that hasn't fully gotten his chance to become a serious name. And I think maybe he's trying to tie himself to Sean McVay. He's the assistant head coach for the Rams right now. Maybe he's waiting for that job to open up, but he's the guy I would be looking at saying, hey, you see how Zac Taylor's kind of built his staffs in the past, right? It's his connections from Miami. It's his connection from Los Angeles. Maybe that's the guy that he says, hey, I want to give him his first chance. And he would be the guy that I would say, okay, like if you're not going for a big name, if you're not going for the Zimmer, if you're not going for the, these other guys, maybe he's the guy. He's the younger guy that I would say, hey, I would probably put my vote of confidence behind him. But just some other names. I mean, one, I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts on, Malik. I don't know how this would work, but Robert Livingston, is there a possibility? Obviously, he left at Colorado. Would there be a possibility for him to come back? I mean, you saw the safety play kind of dipped off, but was that because of him or was that because of Jesse Bates? So he's another name that I thought was interesting, but
somebody said Jack Del Rio. I don't know if Jack Del Rio will be getting any offers. He's got a DUI not too long ago. I think it's literally 2 weeks ago. I know Zim's going to be joining us here shortly.
Mm-hmm.
But what was your question? I want to make sure I get to that.
Just Robert Livingston.
Robert Livingston's a young defensive coordinator, right? That he's actually from Marvin Lewis's staff.
Okay.
He was kind of a holdover, and he's a guy that really earned his chops while he was in Cincinnati. And you notice the defensive back room took a little bit of a dip without him. He's a guy that I think makes a lot of sense. He's known within that building. Would he want to leave the job he did at Colorado for would he want to leave that job he did at Colorado for Cincinnati? Ideally, I guess the one leg up would be he would know what kind of job he's taking on, because Cincinnati, you're on the road, right? Right after that, they require a lot of their coaches from a scouting standpoint. They ask them to have a hand in a lot of stuff. So ideally, whoever you hire in that regards is going to be somebody that, if you were to hire a Robert Livingston, he'd be a guy that has experience being here in Cincinnati. I'll tell you a guy that makes a lot of sense. But I want to wait for Zim for us to jump into this whole talk because I don't want him to miss the conversation. But Wink Martindale, right? Wink Martindale is a guy that I've always thought the world of when he was in Baltimore. And you see the job he's done with that Michigan defense with some of the talent that they have. I know they lost a lot of players, but I think Wink Martindale is a guy that I've always had a lot of respect for. You want somebody that's going to you want somebody that has skin in the game. I'm not going for names. I'm not going for people that is, people that have, their names are hot and head coaching cycles and all that kind of stuff like that. You want somebody ideally that you could build with this defense on. The reason why I'm a fan of going with the veteran approach is because ideally a lot of these guys won't have a chance to, won't necessarily be the first people looked at as head coaching candidates because they are much older. And ideally you could build with the defense versus having turnover and somebody new coming in each and every single year. That's the thought process behind that. But you also get a veteran here that can kind of stabilize things and bring order and discipline. You hire a guy like Robert Livingston, he's more than likely going to be a head coaching candidate if he's able to turn this defense around and get things going. But I think Wink Martindale is a guy that I personally love. I'm a big fan of Wink Martindale. Love the job. I love his exotic blitz packages. I personally think he was better than the defensive coordinator that the Ravens have currently. I think the only reason why he's out of a job is because him and Harbaugh butted heads. But Harbaugh butted heads, and then him and Brian Dable didn't see eye to eye. Him and Brian Dable didn't see eye to eye because of how weird things. How weird things ended with the Giants and the disrespect that he was shown on the way out. But you see the job that he's doing with Michigan, man. I think it makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. But you can touch on some more of these guys.
No, for sure. And even just looking at him, apparently he's from Dayton. So, I mean, there's that Ohio connection. I think that when you're looking at this and who's going to be the next guy, some people are bringing up like Matt Eberflus. I think Matt Eberflus, it's not, a bad thing. I think that there's a difference between being a head coach and being a defense coordinator. I think Matt Eberflus would be a phenomenal defense coordinator, but at this point, you're kind of looking at saying, what's the connection to Zac Taylor in this coaching staff / is it realistic to see Matt Eberflus, coming to Cincinnati and being the defense coordinator? So I'm not too keen on the name Matt Eberflus, but just looking at some of these other guys, I think that it really comes down to, like I said, you've got your pick at a bunch of these guys. I'm just curious to see, would they be willing to leave their current job for this job, right? You look at the Mike Zimmer of the world. He's currently a defense coordinator. Would he be willing to leave his defense coordinator job to be the same position here? And that's how I'd be kind of looking at it. But the one name, and obviously we talked about, I don't know if you're waiting to touch on some of these other names, but like Dennis Allen's obviously a name that's wide out in the open. Zac Taylor was obviously a fan of Dennis Allen. They wanted Dennis Allen here in 2019. He's currently unemployed. That's kind of who I'd be looking at, saying, hey, what are the guys? What's their current responsibilities? Is this an upgrade for them? And what is the connection to Zac Taylor and this coaching staff? So Dennis Allen's a name. Like the Robert Saleh is the interesting one. I just don't know how realistic, that really is. And I think that the point that you brought up, right? He's going from being a defensive coordinator with the San Francisco 49ers, or being, the coaching staff, having Nick Bosa, having a ton of talent there, to going to New York to be their head coach with elite talent. Is he going to go to Cincinnati with the lack of elite talent here, with the lack of true job security? Because like you said, Zac Taylor is on the hot seat, right? He should be on the hot seat. There is a real possibility where if you don't make the playoffs next year, if you don't have serious success next year, Zac Taylor's gone and the new defense coordinator could be gone next year. So if I'm a guy like Robert Saleh, is this the most attractive position for me? I don't think so. So he's the name that's the sexy name. I'm just not so sure he's the one that I'm going to be really penciling in. I think that,
Who's
right,
that?
Robert Saleh.
Robert Saleh, yeah.
I think that Dennis Allen's an interesting one. He was, when you look at his stint with the Saints as the head coach, it was terrible. But I don't think that, and like I said, head coach and defense coordinator is two completely different responsibilities. When he was the defensive coordinator, he had very good talent, but he was a much better defense coordinator than he was a head coach, and that's a fact. So I like him. I like Aubrey Pleasant. I saw some people are saying Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan's all over the place right now. He thinks that he could get the New York Jets, head coaching job. And even when you look at the Jets, something I thought was interesting, they've, gone out and interviewed like 13 guys for their head coach position. So all those names that are being interviewed by them, I feel like once that domino kind of falls, some of those names could be more available, whether it's a Rex Ryan or some of these other names. But like I said, they interviewed 12 guys.
It's just a little difficult because Rex Ryan's coming off of the couch.
Yeah.
Being a TV analyst for the last couple of years. I just don't know how. I mean, the league has changed so much, right? It's kind of hard to just find people that can, it's kind of hard to find someone that can just, come off the couch and be able to turn things around, especially with today's day and age and the league being so offensively driven. It's just a thought, man. But give me some more thoughts on some guys that you're looking at.
Yeah, and just I want to kind of go back and touch on the point real quick. Some people are talking about like Sean Brennan, and I think we appreciate you, being on the show. But the point that you're making, saying, we're letting Zac Taylor off the hook. No one is letting Zac Taylor off the hook. Like, I think that's the difference that we're having right now. This conversation that we're having is how to fix the problem of not having a defense coordinator right now. The fact is, Lou Anarumo is out the door, whether we like it or not. He is out the door. So we have to figure out who is the problem for that, and also how do you fix that solution. Right now, there is nothing we can say to make the Cincinnati Bengals organization believe they should fire Zac Taylor right now. He is going to be the head coach this upcoming season. That's what this day was about. That's what this day showed. So while we could be on here saying he's at fault, and I believe he is at fault for a lot of it, like I said, 1-7 in one-score games, that does not mean that we should be on here and are going to be on here just complaining about Zac Taylor. We're trying to find solutions to the openings of offensive line coach, defensive line coach, and the defense coordinator. But
yeah, I'm looking at it, man, and I'm seeing a lot of the names. I'm seeing a lot of the names that we could potentially talk about. And now that Zim's here, we can get to it, because I didn't want to gloss over people and then have to go counter, go back. So without further ado, let's bring Zim in. What's going on, man?
What's going on?
It's changed in Cincinnati. Sean, you want to see fire from me, man? You want to see me passionate. Listen, I've given my thoughts on the whole Zac Taylor situation, but it's very, very clear. People think that because your offense scores X amount of points, and you're an offensive-minded coach, I guess that absolves you from your team starting slow, your offense starting slow, the miscues, the situational coaching. Let me be very clear, Sean. I don't know how clear I can be about this. Zac Taylor is the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. He is not the offensive coordinator. He is the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. Somewhere along the line, people kind of get that misconstrued, and they only hold him accountable for how the offense performs and not the team as a whole. That is why Zac Taylor is still here. That is why people are pointing to the reason why Zac Taylor is still here, because of his relationship with Joe Burrow. Any coach that comes in here, for the most part, is going to have a good relationship with his coach. We're going to have a relationship with their quarterback and Joe Burrow. I personally believe that he should be held to a higher standard because he is the head coach of the team. But I digress. I think this was a very clear message sent to him this year that things need to change. And I agree with you, Sean. I talked about all these things on the various shows which you've watched. There are a lot of reasons why the Bengals are sitting at home right now. There are a lot of reasons why changes need to be made. The 10 points that they scored against New England Patriots week 1, being unprepared, being not a serious football team, ready to come out, ready to go, unacceptable, right? And those are things that sort of led them to this point. But for some reason, he was absolved of that because he's an offensive-minded coach and they want to keep this thing going. That's fine. But just make sure we understand something. Make sure we understand something. Zac Taylor is entering this next season under a microscope. The seat is on fire, as it should be. Expectations are higher. You didn't stand by your guys. You had to move on. There had to be a scapegoat. There had people that fell off. Fell off. Makes sense, right? So Zac Taylor is still the Bengals head coach. So Zac Taylor, you better not miss with this next defensive coordinator hire. So while we're talking about this, Zim, some of the names that we talked about so far are Robert. We've talked. Oh my God, no. I don't see Zac hiring him. I don't. Let me tell you why. Zac is a guy, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Zac strikes me as a guy that I don't know if he'll bring anyone in here that might threaten his position or make him feel a little bit uncomfortable. I don't see him hiring a Robert Saleh. I don't. I think Robert makes him a little too uncomfortable.
Let me say this though.
Mm-hmm.
I think his seat's so hot, he don't have a choice.
I agree. Hell, if I'm ownership, if I'm front office, I'm getting involved in it. But I can tell you right now, here are some of the names that I'm going to rattle off to you really quickly that the Bengals and Zac Taylor might consider. Robert Livingston, right? Al Golden, Aubrey Pleasant, Mike Zimmer. How about this? Brandon Staley. How about that? Brandon Staley. Those are some of the names. Those are the safe names, right? The guys that they know.
I will be pissed. Bro.
Listen, I'm being honest with you, man. Like, these are some real names that we could be looking at for the Bengals to show interest in, because for you, like Zac is under a microscope. Zac isn't in a spot where he could cherry pick. But, Ken Dipple, you said Bengals wanted Jack Del Rio previously. The seat is a little too hot. He just got a DUI 2 weeks ago. The seat is too hot. Just got a bad DUI too. I don't know.
I don't know if y'all seen Rex Ryan on ESPN. He's throwing his name in the hat.
For what?
In DC.
I mean, he's saying it without saying it, but he's like, everybody would line up that has a defensive background to get this job. He's like, everybody would. I just posted it on my Twitter, but he's like, everybody will want this job. And everybody's like looking at him in the room like, so Rex, you want the job?
For me, it's like, I wonder, would Zac hire a strong personality guy? A guy that commands the room. That guy that is a leader. I love that we're having this dialogue. Danny, I want you to jump in on this too, because I think that guys like Rex Ryan is a damn dog. Like, that already. He's coming in. He's taking control where Zac lacks. He jumps in. I don't know if he hires a Rex Ryan. I don't know if he hires a rah-rah guy like Robert Saleh. And to be honest with you, I don't need you to be a rah-rah guy. I need you a guy that can execute the X's and O's, be consistent, and make this defense have an identity. That's what I want. I don't need a guy who how many of us want to eat a W tonight? I don't need any of that. I need a guy that can look, it's cool. It's cool, but it's not the first prerequisite. That's what I'm saying.
I have so many thoughts on this. All right, so you remember how to do just in the comment section. Shout out to everybody checking us out. Appreciate you having me on here. I'm very sorry I had some technical difficulties. I'm so sorry about that. Appreciate everybody checking us out. Make sure y'all like and subscribe before we even get into this, because we're gonna get into this today, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing that I think that I keep on saying is I don't care about the lip service at the podium, right? Like this whole season, I've been like, everybody's like, I want Zac to say it. I'm like, I don't even really care about that. I wanted the action, right? Is Lou Anarumo like, I don't know. We can go back and forth. I feel like there's pros and cons of moving on from Lou. So I'm not, oh my God, yes, we did it. Yeah. Because of this part. This is the scary part. The rah-rah guy, the guy that wanted you to rah-rah just now, Malik, you don't need podcasters rah-rah. This is the other side of it. I want the young infusion of talent, a Robert Saleh running the fields with these young dudes. That, like you said, that isn't the prerequisite of what I need, but whoever takes this job has to be full on. I'm playing young guys. The Bengals just drafted 11 dudes in this last draft. They just had a kick-ass 2023 draft full of talent with DJ Turner, Dax Hill, all these dudes, Chase Brown, and everything like that. It's a young movement. The veterans now are Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. That's how young the team is. So if the defensive coordinator comes in and he is rah, the dude that just was calling for Malik to be like rah right now, you don't need us to do that. The guy that's actually influencing the team on a day-to-day basis, I think I want that level of energy. And if it's not that, if you give me an even kill, more Dennis Allen, more calculated version of it, it's still results. That's all I want is results. Like all of that talking, Cincinnati, we about to find out right now. All this time when we be like, big market teams would have moved on from there. This is what happens when you fire a team. Now all that rah-rah shit that everybody's talking about they want to see at press conference, that shit is over. Mm-hmm. This is the part where teams actually go into their war room and strategize on a plan. You don't need people saying like, oh my God, let's turn up and let's ride. You don't got to ride no more. You got the firings that everybody was calling for, like, or some of them, a lot of people want Zac gone, right? But you got some. So now is the time. Let's go and implement a plan. If it is the rah-rah defensive coordinator, dude, I'm not mad at that because it's a youth movement and there's an argument. And the biggest argument against Lou right now is if he plays some of those young guys early in the season, I don't think he'd be fine. I think we'd be in the playoffs, 10, 11 wins, and I think we win. I could be wrong. We'll never know. But that would be the pushback on Lou.
Yeah, and I think that's when we look at this. I think that there's a case for a lot of these guys, like we said. The Dennis Allen is the one where the dude doesn't have a job right now. So he's the one, he was hired in 2019. Like, it makes a lot of sense. And when we talk about what we need and what we're looking for, I think that there can be a case for the rah-rah guy. I think that it is something that maybe that this team could balance out with Zac Taylor, right? Zac Taylor isn't necessarily that guy, so that could be the case. But for all these candidates, I'm looking at two different things. I'm looking at somebody who's either, right, a veteran or somebody who's had a previous connection with Zac Taylor. And that's kind of how, I'm looking at these guys like the Aubrey Pleasants of the world. These are the ones where it's saying, hey, who can I truly see Zac Taylor hiring? But I also think that, and this was the conversation we were kind of having, is this is a different ballgame than 2019. Like, exactly what Rex Ryan said on national television. Nobody was saying that in 2019 about this team. The fact that two waves of defense coordinators came and went 2019, that's not happening now. So I think that the opening for this position, it's kind of 50-50, right? It's saying, hey, does a guy really want to tie themselves to Zac Taylor? But also a guy could see this as a golden opportunity. Hey, this team was in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. This team has an MVP on the other side. If I go in and do my job, we are set. and we're going to be a shoo-in for the playoffs. So I think it is a very attractive position. And when we look at these guys, I think you've got your pick. And I think that the final point I'll make is the Zac Taylor conversation versus the defense coordinator conversation. I don't know if you're extremely excited looking at this crop of, potential head coaches and saying, hey, if Zac Taylor was gone, are we confident in the guy we're going to bring in versus now saying, hey, is the impact of bringing in a defense coordinator, is it going to help, Zac Taylor bring him to the next level? I think that it could. So Aubrey Pleasant, Dennis Allen, I think you've got your pick of these guys. Some people are saying Marvin Lewis. I don't know if I would
Come on,
necessarily
Marvin Lewis ain't coming here.
go back there,
And
but
nor would they do that.
But yeah. So Zim,
Marvin Lewis is crazy.
Yeah, what were you gonna say, Malik?
No, you're good.
Oh,
You're good.
I was just gonna ask Zim, what's kind of your thoughts on the difference of these candidates, right? Like, there's a bunch of these names that people are throwing out. Is Robert the one guy that you're penciling in, or what's kind of your criteria that you're looking at saying, hey, this is what I want out of the next defensive coordinator?
The next defense, I want him. I don't want him in the building. So when Malik was saying those names, I feel like right now it's a microcosm or like a parallel of what I expect from the Bengals to do in free agency from moving forward. For every plan, you have a contingency. We're never going to show them rankings ourselves up front. If we show them rankings ourselves, we need to put a DJ Reader next to it. And sometimes a DJ Reader next to it doesn't mean that you should be fearful. It just means you need to raise your game.
Yeah.
And anybody in-house isn't pressuring Zac Taylor to turn up. And that's the problem to me, is like, those are all his friends. I don't want to, like, if he has a great, good network and people that he could communicate with, and he has a history there, that's perfect. But that I don't need his friends putting him in the same position that he had before. And if somebody like a Dennis Allen or Robert Saleh is a threat to him, or there's a threat to him, and I'm gonna give you a name of a guy that later on in the second two that I really think he's a young talent, Cincinnati ties. I like him. But whoever it is, say that guy, I want the next candidate to be good enough to be a head coach. So if we get to week 4 of next year and we're 1-3, bye Zac. I got my head coach right here. We're not starting off. I mean, I would tell, if I'm the front office, I'm telling them right now, hey, look, we just stood up for you for real. Yeah, some of your guys had to go, but if you start off this season less than 3-2, you're gone. Like, we're like 3-3. We're not doing none of that no more. We're not wasting these. You're making us look bad. You're making our fans turn on us. You're making everything. And Zac be like, it's not my fault. What about the run? He be like, hey, and I mean, they be like, yeah, but I'm cutting you a check for what, $400K or something like that. They be like, yeah, this is the way it's gonna go.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, like, cry about it. I mean, this is the business of. This is how professions in this sport work. And the loyalty, you can be loyal, but at what cost is it costing you? So the guy that I would want would be out of the building, a talent that's good enough to be a head coach. And as a result, it raises the game of everybody. When Spags came in there and he was in Kansas City and we made them get rid of the other dude, or I mean, I'm sorry, when somebody else was there and then Spags came in there and there ain't nobody say, well, Andy Reid, Spags is right. He's good enough to be a head coach. You better do more than just call plays, Andy. Like, no. Like, you bring in the best coach, just like our running back room and all these different conversations that we're having. The conversation that Daniel talked about with Burton the other day. People gotta get in line with the idea of having the most talent, having the most of anything in this capacity or whatever. That helps you. If Burton has success, that helps you. Victory lapping on people that didn't succeed doesn't help you. That was a 3rd round pick. You need dudes like that to ball out so that it helps keep all of your other players healthy, all these different things. Coaching's the same way. I don't want my strongest link just being this one dude with his friends drinking brewskis, watching film. I want a dude in Dennis Allen or somebody that has a championship background or a winning background and say, hey, Zac, I know I respect what you're doing, but this is what we did here. Zac could say, fuck off. I know what I'm doing. Now we got a competition though, right?
Yeah.
But now we're like, no, well, this is what we did at 4 a.m. over here. Yeah, this is what we did at 5 a.m. And then now all of a sudden we're all combining because all of our jobs are now on the line and we're all going out here to win. And that's what it's all about to me.
Yeah, and so Zach right now, kind of, I believe he's got a press conference. And
Yeah, he's speaking to the media, and he says the coaching changes was his decision on dismissing Lou Anarumo. Just felt like we needed change. I don't take this lightly. They're like brothers to me. It's not an easy day for us. Thus, some of his comments on firing Lou Anarumo. Just felt like they needed change, and we need to perform better as a football team. I mean, make no mistake about it, right? These changes are, it's a part of professional sports. Somebody had to answer for this season, and it certainly was going to be Zach, but somebody had to answer for the results that happened this season. Now, where they go going forward, you know, I'm all on board for what Zim said. You know, ideally, the next defensive coordinator candidate needs to be a guy that has the opportunity to be a head coach. But what I'm saying is, don't be so afraid to walk away from some of the veteran defensive coordinators, guys that have skin in the game, that have done it before. If you have the chance to add a Robert Saleh or you add somebody else, you go out and you do that, right? I'm of the boat that I got to see it to believe it with Zac Taylor. I don't know if he'll have the gumption, right, to hire someone that will make his job feel a little bit uncomfortable. But I think it's important to try to leave no one stone unturned when it comes to trying to hire the next defensive coordinator candidate. So what I want to do now is I want to actually get into some of these next defensive coordinator candidates. I want to hear some names. It could be guys that we talked about, right? Guys that we haven't necessarily touched on just yet. I want to hear your overall thoughts on who you guys think the next set defensive coordinator candidate should be. Daniel, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think that the obvious name for me, obviously we're talking about some of these names. I do think that it's Dennis Allen. I think that Dennis Allen is, you know, a veteran guy. And when you look at what he did with the Saints, obviously he's got the connection with Trey Hendrickson. He had the connection with Von Bell. When I look at what he did and what he was able to do with New Orleans before he became the head coach, their defense was consistently, at least it was above middle of the road. And they had some talent there. They had a dominant defensive line. I think that's kind of where the Bengals need to start. Obviously, you need to add the talent, but I'm looking at a guy right now. The biggest thing is the dude does not have a job. He doesn't. So it's not like you have to pry him from somewhere else. He is going to be looking for a job, and I'm very confident at least he is going to get an interview. So you're going to bring him into the building knowing he's been, you know, you've coveted him before. And if you're Zac Taylor, that's kind of the type of guy hopefully you're looking for, saying, hey, a guy who's been there before, has had a very good defense. And it's not like Dennis Allen is a name where we're just throwing it out of nowhere. Like I said, they brought him in for an interview in 2019. So he's really the first guy that I'm circling at, saying, hey, I'm very confident they're going to bring him in for an interview at least. And you just hope that they can kind of replicate what he had with New Orleans. They had a rotation of guys, and you just look at that defensive line. They got the Cam Jordan. They had, you know, the dominant interior defense line. They had Trey Hendrickson. That's what they were building. And you look at Trey Hendrickson, it's not like the dude was a star. Dude was a late third, early fourth round pick out of what, FAU, top tier school. So I think that's what I would be looking at. You even look at what he did. He developed these talents, right? Carl Granderson, undrafted free agent. He developed these young talents to fit his defensive scheme. And I feel like that's the next step for this defense for the Bengals, because I'm not confident that they're going to go out and sign a dominant free agent. If I were to guess, they draft a defensive lineman round 1. They maybe sign a guy like, Azeez Ojulari, maybe, but you've got this defensive line to work with. Show me what you can do. So I don't think that this next defense coordinator is going to get some superstar outside of Trey Hendrickson. So they got to be able to work with these guys, and you got to be able to develop Joseph Asai, hopefully Miles Murphy, and I think Dax Hill in these guys. So the first name I would say is definitely Dennis Allen. But what's your guy, Zim?
Zim, who do you think? So, DJ USA brought up a name. I didn't even think about that.
What, Ron Rivera?
Said Ron Rivera. Huh.
What do you think, Zim? I'm gonna tell you a guy. He has ties to Cincy, and I was looking at this the other week. Shout out to my boy EA, kind of like put this in my ear a couple of weeks ago. If you're a Michigan fan, you might know him. He's currently the defensive cornerbacks coach or defensive secondary coach with the Chargers, but his name is Steve Clinkscale. He was the Michigan coach in 2001 to 2021 to 2023. think about what they did on that staff. They were in the same situation that the Bengals were in with Herbert. Guys leading the league in yards and all these different things. Awful. Staley was the coach who I want no parts of. Staley was the coach, and then they got him out of there. And now then the defense transformed into the number one scoring defense up until we played them. Then they kind of fell off a cliff a little bit. But he took a young secondary, young pieces. Remember, Chargers had to get rid of a lot of people.
Yeah.
They had to get rid of a lot of, and it was supposed to be like a transitional thing. And then the Chargers, like that one little bit made them above average defense. And then all of a sudden now the Chargers are in the playoffs and the Chargers are a competitive football team. I don't think they have enough weapons on offense. But Steve Klingscale, he's currently, I think he's 47 years old or whatever. But he had a 15-0 record that year with the Wolverines, with the national championship. Defense was like all over the place. He has ties with Cincinnati. He also was the defensive back coach at University of Kentucky for 5 seasons, and he was with the UC from 2013 to 2015. He's not a name you're going to hear all the time, but that's one dude that I think he's a legit candidate. Wouldn't be wanting a shit ton of money, and he kind of falls in line with what we're saying on things. I just think all of my candidates are outside the building, letting you know that now.
Same. So you wouldn't consider a Robert Livingston outside the building, respectfully? The job he did with Colorado, the job he did with the Bengals secondary, when they were, bringing in guys like Chidobe Awuzie, Eli Apple, like these, we can blame, the coordinator for development of said defensive lineman, but that really is on positional coaches. You know what I mean? Like it is your job directly on the defensive line to work with the defensive linemen that they bring you to help them develop in their in their game. That is your job. And I could say Robert Livingston, at least from what we saw with the secondary, the job that he was able to do with guys like Eli Apple, helping his career have a little bit of a resurgence.
Right.
It's been phenomenal.
Shit, what he's done
for that, even what he did with Colorado. It's been
phenomenal. I'm about to say what he did with Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter, phenomenal. So
how would you like to manage that? You know what I mean? Like manage a guy that needs a breather coming off on offense. Got to get him out there. Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to that one. I think it's not the splash that I'm looking at. The guy I said isn't the splash either.
Right. I'm
just looking at it's a bit of it's a nice little dance we're doing, right? It's like you got to compromise because you know. I'm very. Can I say that I'm a little surprised at you though, because I was gonna say this great philosopher named Malik Wright. I don't know if you heard of him. He once told me about a guy named Bill Parcells. He sold me on this thing, and the whole idea of getting someone out the building. I remember when you sold me on this show, because I was a little skeptical, and then I said, I know a lot of people were like, "Ha, you didn't get Bill Parcells." I'm like, you sound stupid. Like we would be better with Bill Parcells, and I think a lot of people were focusing on that, but I was focusing on why do we want Bill Parcells?
Right.
What does he bring? Winning background. So now I take that and I factored into whoever. So like the guy I just said, that's a winning background. He just won a national championship. That's a winning background. He just came from the Chargers that is now about to go into the playoffs. He took them from the worst defense, and now they're like, to me, they're like top 15. So
I think the reason why I'm shocking you is because when I was so poignant about making a switch at head coach back then, it was because that would be a front office decision. Whoever they hire as defensive coordinator is the guy's decision that I was talking about moving off of weeks and weeks and weeks ago. I don't have faith that Zac Taylor is going to necessarily bring in the correct person. We will see if I am wrong in that thought process. I'm all for bringing on an outside voice. Let me be very, very clear in saying that. I'm all for bringing in an outside voice, somebody new, somebody vibrant, someone that can really get the organization going. But at the end of the day, the reason why I was so, I guess, a little bit more bullish on the head coach is because whoever you bring in as a head coach would have direct ties to working with the organization, meaning they can empower change, right?
Zimmer.
Like a Bill Belichick, someone who has successful background. It's a little bit more difficult unless you're able to grab a veteran defensive-minded coach, somebody who has skin in the game, somebody who has done it. If you go out there and you grab a Robert Saleh, if you go out there and you grab a Dennis Allen, they're going to require change. They're going to require things that they need to see from the front office that are going to make them want to sign in Cincinnati. That's my whole thought process.
Let me ask you this. Because Robert Saleh, let's just back it up a quick second.
Yeah.
Robert Saleh, when he first was fired, do y'all remember what he did when he first got fired?
He went to the Packers, didn't he? Went to the Packers, yeah.
He went to the Packers immediately. Somebody hungry. You know what I mean? Like when Vrabel was fired, he just latched on to the Browns. You know what I mean? So like this concept of like, I don't think that they could get, I'm telling y'all, Bengals fans got to stop talking about the 90s. We are in 2024. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. This is a highly coveted job.
100%.
Please understand that. The money, I understand that. Yes, I have my doubts on the front office and in the power and the control. But as far as the candidates and me watching,
no. So just be clear. Let me be ultra clear. We are agreeing. We agree.
Yeah.
This is a Zac hire, though. Zac is going, not unless the front office jumps in and says, hey, we're going to have a hand in who we bring in as defensive coordinator. This is going to be a Zac Taylor hire. So the notion I'm coming with is since Zac Taylor is taking over,
I would say, I said 2024. It's 2025. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He's hired his buddies all throughout since he's been here. He pushed back on the Frank Pollock hire. Right, he brought in James Betcher because James Betcher and Lou worked together with the New York Football Giants. So for me, Zac's track record says he goes with the people that he knows versus the people that he does not know. That's where I'm going from. I hope he changes stripes, and I hope that he hires somebody that's completely outside the box thinking.
Right.
I hope he does that because I'd be like, yes, this dude is all on board. He fought tooth and nail the Frank Pollock hire. Him and Frank Pollock never got along from the day that he got here. From the day Frank Pollock was hired back here, they never got along.
Bro,
right?
But this is the thing, though. You're operating, when you say that part about like his choice, I feel like there's a puppet master behind the scenes named Mike, Katie, and all these people like that. Zac, think about what they use Zac for. They use him to be the face of every time that somebody has a question about a contract, they send him Zac's way. If they want to go to bars and hand out footballs, Zac. All that public, all that PR shit, that's all Zac, right? So they're using him to do what they want for whatever agenda that they want for whatever month.
Correct.
The power level of Zac being able to say, this is what I want or whatever is not a thing to me. I don't feel like that. There is validity to say, though, the Bengals front office isn't going to give somebody that wants power a spot. But that's why I was talking about how hungry Saleh was, how hungry Mike Vrabel was to get onto those staffs. So think about that. Mike Vrabel was itching to get back into coaching, couldn't get a spot.
He just sit out,
So he just jumped on with the Browns. You think that he ain't going to be able to see Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and say, all I got to do is be top 15? I don't even really got to be the best defense. Like, I'm not talking to you. I'm just talking to people in general. That's what I'm talking about. There's some hungry candidates that are more than worthy. I think Zimmer's Zimmer, somebody just said Zimmer, and I scoffed at the Marvin Lewis one because I don't know. I need to see how Zimmer moving these days. I know he's a lot older, but that's another candidate. I like him because of his ties with the family and the connections that he's built throughout the years. The ties that he has to Zac Taylor. Remember, I don't want friends. I want guys that he just knows, acquaintances in the connections. Maybe he worked with him in some capacity. Somebody in the comments let me know. Maybe he's worked under Mike Zimmer or done something with him at some point.
I know he's always raved about him. He raved about him not too long ago. He's talked about how his offense, his defense has always cost him headaches.
Double gap blitz, Mike Zimmer is something like the Bengals need. Somebody that has like what Mike Zimmer did to the Vikings for those years and got them back or whatever, credit to him for that. But the toughness that I think somebody like him has in that's kind of what I'm looking for. Or they could be somebody young that's super hungry, like a Robert Saleh, or somebody might be a guy that I'm not even talking about, right? But it's got to be outside for me. I think somebody talking about Leslie Frazier. I like that one because he was on as an assistant coach recently. There's a bunch of guys. And one thing that this is one point that I just have to say. If you're a Bengals fan condemning someone for bringing up a candidate, let's not do that this year. Let's talk these situations out.
Right.
Let's talk about why you think that candidate is a good one. Let's unify. Let's get together on these concepts on why you think that your candidate is. We don't have to be, that's a stupid idea. Mike Zimmer, that's so goddamn stupid. No, I can tell you some legit reasons why Mike Zimmer. I can also tell you why some young dudes that I think would cook too. But I like the Zimmer one only because if Zach were to be fired, Mike Zimmer's my head coach. No problems at all. Like, and then, I think like his leadership, and I think he'll be smart enough to hire the right people. And we get back to what we were saying originally. I think any OC, this is where I don't really buy that much stock in Zach. Any OC with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow going to be a top 5 offense to me. So I need that toughness. I need the energy and the motivation of someone that can motivate people and get them playing and challenge Joe Burrow.
Daniel?
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think that one thing people are saying is about Zac Taylor saying that, it was he was the reason. I also think that there's a chance where he's just covering the front office's ass. Don't take everything that Zac Taylor says for, literal. Just because he said it was his decision does not mean it was solely his decision. So I just want the fans to understand from the interview, don't just say, oh, he was scapegoating Lou Anarumo. Maybe it wasn't just him. But the fact is Zac Taylor's still here. So we got to find who is going to be a good compliment to having, Zac Taylor still here. So I think that there's a bunch of these names that are good. Some people said Jim Knowles from Ohio State, the DC. I think I just don't know personally if I'm going to go from the college ranks. I think, Malik, you brought up Wink Martindale. I thought that was an interesting one. He was very successful with the NFL, and then obviously what he's doing with Michigan. I just think that I would probably look to the NFL, to be honest with you. I think that a lot of these candidates come from having successful playoff runs. So I think we'll see from this playoff run if there's, another guy, a younger guy from these teams, whether it's the Detroit Lions or whether it's the Baltimore Ravens. We'll wait to see. But I think that that's kind of a huge thing. You look at the teams also that make the Super Bowl. A ton of times we went through this. You go look at the Rams coaching staff. You go look at many of these coaching staffs that won Super Bowls, the 49ers. Why do you think all these dudes got jobs? Because they made the damn Super Bowl. Robert Saleh made the Super Bowl, went and became a head coach. I think that it remains to be seen so far through the playoffs, but I think that there's these teams with young guys, even a team like the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to be honest. I think we could see them do something very good in the playoffs. They're facing the Minnesota Vikings. I think they win at home. Then who's to say they don't go in upset the Philadelphia Eagles? And then from there, I guarantee you, Aubrey Pleasant, his name's going to shoot right through the roof if they go win 2 playoff games. So I look at these guys who are in the playoffs as well as candidates.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
People are bringing up Gerard Mayo. Zim, what do you think of the name Gerard Mayo? We're gonna listen. One thing we're gonna do, we haven't talked in a bit. We're gonna talk through some of these names with you guys. So I want you guys to do me a favor, guys. Drop your defensive candidates' names down in the comment section that you want the Bengals to consider, and we're gonna get to them right now. I love the names.
How about this? Let me do this. I want to do this. Let's do this on air. Daniel, that hat is fire. All right, I like that font. I'm a big hat. I'm a big hat guy. Yeah. I'm wearing my Lou Anarumo 2022 championship game. Right?
Yo, you got jokes. You got jokes.
That's a fire hat. How about when this video is over?
Yeah.
I will buy one of those hats. Whoever in the comment section, you can comment now. But when the video is over, we need comments. Run up the comments. Tell everybody that they have a chance to win the State of the Jungle hat. Because I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna buy one from you. Daniel, hit me up. Let me know. I will buy the hat for whoever can sell me on the best candidate when this video is over. That hat is fired. You all need this hat. If you want to rock this on coming up, we got a long 9 months, don't we got?
We got a
Yeah,
long time.
long
God
time.
damn, it's gonna take forever. Can we oh my god. Anyway, I'm gonna buy
Yeah.
the hat for whoever can sell me on, and Daniel's gonna send me like I'm gonna look in the comment section myself.
Yeah.
And y'all tell me who is the best candidate. Go crazy in the comments now. But when it's over, I want to see the views up, and I want to see the comments on this video. On who is your candidate?
I love that idea. Let's go with that. I love that idea. Zen, one thing I want to touch on you about is there was another big coaching change today that we didn't talk about. The Bengals fired offensive line coach and run game coordinator Frank Pollock. Zac Taylor, do me a favor.
Frank the Tank. Hey, Frank.
I got one thing I need to say though, really quickly.
Okay, hang on.
Please, Zach. Yeah, is the camera on me?
Yeah.
Please do not hire your brother as run game coordinator.
Oh Lord.
Please do not hire Press Taylor as running game coordinator. Doug Peterson had a weird tie to him. Wouldn't move off of the guy. Do not hire your brother as run game coordinator and then proceed to hire an offensive line coach. Do not hire Press Taylor as the Bengals' next run game coordinator. That's all I wanted to say. Zim, what were you about to say? Because I can see that happening.
That's big. That is a big factor. I thought the Frank Pollock one is not getting talked about enough. Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up. Mm-hmm. To me, defensive coordinator is very important. But the Frank Pollock one, the run game coordination, the non-development of any offensive lineman, any of them. Remember, Amarius Mims was giving credit to Trent Brown and Orlando Brown in the preseason, in training camp. He wasn't giving it to Pollock in those instances. We're 5-6 years later on Zac Taylor, and we don't have a competent run game. I love Chase Brown to death. I'm so excited that everybody's showing like all these graphs about Chase Brown and all these different things. But then when you go into the EPA per play, the run game's success is still not there. You got Chase Brown out there breaking tackles, doing all these different things, getting yards over expected. And we're like 6 years later, and then we're playing teams that don't have good run defenses, and we're still throwing the ball 50 times. Mm-hmm. The number one thing, I don't know how y'all felt about this, but when I saw 500 pounds of two dudes falling on Joe Burrow's neck on that game, I was scared to death. And I watched all these teams like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and stuff. I watched them drop back 18, 24 times a game. And then they come out here and be like, yeah, we got the best quarterback and we're the best. And cool. All right. The reason why they feel so confident is that because they have to do so much less in terms of pure dropbacks. Whoever is the next offensive line coach, give this man a competent run game or competent run game coordination, and I promise you the offensive line will look like superstars. They're going to make Orlando Brown and Mims look like the greatest tackles in the history of football if they just run for 100-something yards a game. One of my favorite games. I don't think I told y'all on this one. Everybody go look this up. And I think I said this on the last show. The game last year where they played the Colts is the only game in the Zac Taylor era that didn't relinquish a sack to a quarterback. And in that game, Joe Mixon and Chase Brown had both over 100 all-purpose yards. Jake Brown had dropped back 24 times in that game and still threw for 280 yards. That's what Joe Burrow needs. He needs that. Or, and I was talking to a good friend of mine, shout out to, the Chase family and everybody. Like I was talking to him this morning, and he was like, and we were talking about Mahomes and all these different, I said, have you seen the build of those dudes? I remember I saw Jacoby Brissett. That dude could get hit 20 times a game. The dude's built like a linebacker. Joe Burrow, I love him to death. He is not built like that. Smaller ankles. He has his frame. He could try to build up all he wants. He'll never be a stout bulldog like back. Like, Pat Mahomes just got baby fat on him where people just fall off of him. Dropping back Joe Burrow 50 times a game is a bigger conversation than let's just figure out how we can fix the offensive line. You're going to be doing that every single year if you drop back 50 times. I don't care if you have 5 Penei Sewells. If you drop back 50 times, you're getting hit. I don't care who it is. They have to learn how to have a competent run game. And that in itself will protect Joe Burrow and get him ready for the playoffs. And you watch all of these dudes like Lamar and Josh Allen only throw 20 times a game, and they go through the season barely unscathed. If you watch a Lamar game, he probably gets touched 3-4 times a game, and 2 of them are the ones that he inflicts himself. He says, "Yeah, I want to make a statement, truck a dude one time or whatever like that." Somebody rushing him, whatever, he gets away from it, throws the ball away. It's quick. They don't even give you that many opportunities to hit him. They don't, bro. And that's the difference to me. That's the biggest problem with me saying Zac Taylor with a top 3 offense. Cool, you got a top 3 offense. How did you get it? You dropped back and you attempted 90 more passes than Lamar and all these dudes like that. Yeah, Joe Burrow should be leading the league in yards. He's the best processor and best quarterback.
So here's one thing I want to say, man. To that point, and I thought you brought up some great points. What if I said, "Hey, Bengals, no matter who the offensive line coach is, you still need to go out there and address the interior of the offensive line. You need to change your ways when it comes to the interior of the offensive line. No offensive line coach is coming in here and making Cordell Volson, Alex Kappa look like world beaters." And those guys were 100% getting violated play after play after play. And you continuously put those guys out there. Make a concerted effort, like you made a concerted effort to get better at tackle when you realized Jonah Williams was not the answer. Make a concerted effort to go out there and upgrade the guard position. And then the 40-plus touchdown passes Joe Burrow threw this year, what could it be next year when he does have a competent interior offensive line? Because I'm confident Joe Burrow could evade blitzers on the edge. He's very good at maneuvering the pocket. But when you have a guy running right at him at the start of a play, I mean, absolutely bulldozing your guards, you're literally blowing up the play before it even has a chance to get going. You're blowing up any chance of having a significant run game before it gets a chance of even going. So I think that there's needs to be a change on the philosophy side of things for the Bengals this offseason when it comes to addressing the interior of the offensive line. And I think it'll shock them to see the results that they get. Daniel.
It's very simple, bro. Kevin said this real quick. I'm sorry, man. No, it's very simple, bro. It's very simple. It's just like life. In anything that you are ever done, or like if we go and buy lottery tickets right now, you give me 50 tickets, I bet you I hit something, right? You know what I mean? Like I'm going to not hit. I'm going to hit a lottery, and I'm going to win some bucks.
That's crazy.
I'm going to win some dollars. Like you give me more opportunities. Imagine thinking that I hear everybody saying, yes, I want to upgrade the interior line. I want to get Will Freeze, and I want to go get Tate Ratledge in the second.
Tevin Jenkins.
Give me in too. We're gonna still have the same conversations, my brothers and sisters. If they continue to drop this dude back, and somebody say,
"Oh, 100%,
you're acting 100%. Like Joe Burrow isn't tough." Joe Burrow is the toughest motherfucker on earth. I'm the king of telling people that, right? But I'm also smart enough, and I'm calculated when I say that to say that no human being could have 300-pound men falling at his knees and his leg and rolling over on his helmet. When they picked Joe Burrow up the other night, it wasn't just grass right here on this side of the face mask. His whole face mask had turf grass in it. They had to pick the dude out of the ground. Like they buried this dude alive, no penalty, nothing like that. The only way, and I've said this since he tore his ACL, everybody has to hear me clearly. The only way to preserve Joe Burrow, to create the monster that we know that he can be, is give him a competent run game where now the defense cannot just shoot upfield. And also, the amount of opportunities that you have to hit this man are limited. That is the only way. That's what all the quarterbacks do. None of them are dropping back 50 times, bro. None of them. Go look. Josh Allen be having like 20. Like, look at the yards. Joe Burrow has 1,000 more passing yards than Josh Allen because Josh Allen was giving Cook and all these dudes like Shakira, little bubble screen here, and then he just runs when he has to, gets 60 yards rushing, drops back. Go look at the attempts per game versus Joe Burrow. I'm telling y'all, if you did that and you limited that and you only gave TJ Watt 20 opportunities to go get you in a game, not only will all of your tackles grade out better, the opportunities, like big 300-pound man, go ask Parker Blake. 300-pound men want to be moving forward, hitting people. You do that in the run game. They don't want to be on retreat every drop back, like, oh, let me get this guy. Oh, it's a stunt. Oh my God, I'm always in retreat. No, I'm a big man. I want to go out and hit somebody. That's what they're paid to do. And if you don't establish that in the run game, how will you ever be able to go and use your strength? Like, what good is 300 pounds if I have to be balanced on my back foot? I have to move forward and hit somebody first. And then as the game progresses, now that guy that I just hit is thinking about, oh shit, he just hit me. He just hit me with a move just now that I didn't like. I got to be thinking about that. They're not even giving nobody nothing to think about. They just like, yeah, Joe Burrow going to drop back, run as fast as you can at him. No play action, no run game. And we like Joe Burrow because he's the best processor in football. That is not a strategy, and that is not something to be taking a victory lap for Zac Taylor saying he's top 3 offense and shit like that. Shit, me and Malik would be top 3. I send Joe Burrow back there and say, hey, throw it to Jamar Chase for half of your cap. Bro, we're number 1. I'm really number 1 offense in the league because then we start talking play calling.
No, you know, I agree with all the stuff that you said there, and I agree. I think that you need to have some type of balance, and it's a lazy take to say that's just not the offense that we are. I think it's offense you can be. I think you can develop, you can grow, you can have a balance, more attack. That's how you preserve yourself in the National Football League. And I think a lot of that goes down to trying to go out there and acquire talent, as well as trying to put together a run game that can take some of the pressure off the passing game, because it's just not realistic to go out there and be passing quite literally all the time. You know, Danny, I want to get your thoughts in here. There's a guy for the running game coordinator, and Zim, I don't want to keep you too much longer, my man, too. I appreciate you for joining us on the.
I'm good. I'm snowed in, bro. Look,
all right, cool. I'm snowed in too, brother. I'm snowed in too.
I can't. I'm just eating food, sitting back, talking ball.
We're at the TWS Studios. I want to throw a name at you guys for run game coordinator. I know. Hear me out for a second before you crucify me, kill me, and tell me you don't know ball. Hear me out. This man has struggled everywhere from a play calling standpoint, but where he really excelled was as a run game coordinator. He's a former running back in the NFL. He's a former running back, matter of fact, for the Cincinnati Bengals. His name is Eric Bieniemy. What got him his chops to be an offensive play caller was the job he did with the Kansas City Chiefs running backs. He has made a living in his career of working with running backs. He was the running game coordinator for the Chiefs, did a great job with that. That's what led him to, becoming an offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs and winning a couple Super Bowls with them. But that's what he was beforehand. I want to get everybody's thoughts on that. And in fact, you don't even need to necessarily comment on that if you don't want to, but I just wanted to throw that out there. But Danny, I want to get your overall thoughts on the offensive line, coach. We talked about running game coordinator, we talked about, and so much more.
Yeah, I think, Bieniemy, I think that's a good name. I like him, and I'm curious to see I don't even know where he's currently at.
Nowhere.
Right, so ain't got a job right now. I think that'd be good. I like him. And I think that he's had success where he's had success. Even you go look at his time, Washington, you could look at his time, obviously Kansas City. I think that he got a bad rap, and it's not like you would be hiring him to be your offensive coordinator. You got him doing one specific thing. So I'm a huge fan of that. I think, wasn't he with UCLA or something? But anyways, I like him. And I think that, Zim, you guys kind of hit the nail on the head when it comes to what's going to fix this team. And my concern is, this is really up to Zac Taylor. You can bring in a new offensive line coach. You can bring in a guy like Eric Bieniemy to be your run game coordinator. It's going to be up to Zac Taylor to change his stripes and change his philosophy, because as you guys have all seen, right, and have heard what Zac Taylor said, he said our identity is going to be Joe Burrow, and we're not going to take the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands. You go look at every great team, the Tom Brady's of the world, the Kansas City Chiefs of the world, like you said, the Buffalo Bills of the world. You give them a good running game, the quarterback can just sit back and do what he does for 15% less than what he's doing right now. And I think that's my biggest concern. That's my biggest hope for this upcoming season, right? You see people talking about Ashton Jeanty. It's not about getting an Ashton Jeanty up in here. It's about building the offensive line, just sticking with the running game. Chase Brown has been phenomenal this season, but still, I would go look to add a tag team partner with Chase Brown. Give me a bruiser, 220-pound bruiser that can do it between the tackles, that can do it at the goal line. Give me somebody, the Thunder to Chase Brown's Lightning, and then we're talking. But you have to be able to make that your identity. And that's my biggest question for Zac Taylor, right? We can bring in the offensive line coach, we can bring in the run game coordinator, but this is a Zac Taylor question when it comes to running the ball, right? You have to be able to make that your identity. And you hope that these new guys in this, you bring them into your room, you hope that they can make that priority. But like I said, I think that it starts with Zac Taylor. And I hope that Zac is looking at this season saying, hey, just because Burrow was in MVP conversation, just because Jamar Chase was in Offensive Player of the Year conversations, that's not the priority. Your priority isn't to win a damn MVP. And the same thing with Burrow. He said, hey, I'm going to win one, but that's not the priority. That's not what I want. You want a Super Bowl. And the fact of the matter is you want to preserve Joe Burrow. Like, I'm going to say it this year. It's a blessing. The dude got through 17 games healthy. And that was the fear heading into this season. And that's not a given. So we can't head into next season hoping, hey, let's just hope that Joe Burrow has 17 full games. So Zac Taylor, that's my call to action for him, is really to establish the running game. And even something we saw this year, another red flag was, hey, many times you had a 10-point lead, you couldn't establish the run game, whether it was the Chase Brown fumble, whatever happened, you have to figure that out. So I'd be looking to add a running back to pair with Chase Brown. But I think one of the questions that needs to be answered is it's going to be a Zac Taylor thing. Hey, can you get with your new offensive line coach and develop a run game that can give Joe Burrow the ability to not throw the ball 40-something times every single game? But when it comes to the rest of these guys, Zim, is there any other thoughts you got on the offensive line coach, what you're looking for? And even I thought that was fascinating what you brought up about Mims, how he talked about Trent Brown and how he wasn't even talking about Frank Pollock. Is there any other thoughts you got on the Frank Pollock?
Yeah. Do you remember what I'm talking about though? When he was like talking about how they interviewed him two times. One time was like the preseason in one game, and he was just like, Mims just be smiling and laughing. And he was like, man, shout out to them guys, Trent Brown and Orlando. I can't thank them enough for how I've been, really developing it. I'm thinking to myself, like, bro, you got an offensive line coach for that. You're like getting all your tips from I think can I just say one of the more underrated injuries was Trent Brown this season, because when Mims went out, the argument would be like, well, Mims wouldn't have got in. I think Mims would have took the job no matter what. But when Mims got hurt and Orlando Brown got hurt, the depth was then kind of compromised. And I thought, there's so many that let's forget the season. All right, fuck the season. All right.
But even I think it was I think you might have tweeted out or somebody tweeted out about Eric All. And I think that's another thing that can go with the Bengals running game is, hey, I like when they have those two tight ends out there. I think that the biggest issue was the two tight ends they would have out there early on in the season was two run blocking tight ends. It'd be Sample and Eric All, but maybe you get, I like the two tight end sets. I like when you've got, the flexibility versus when you have just Gesicki in there. It kind of, and I think the broadcast said it, they threw the ball on 80%, 75% of snaps with Gesicki in there. What if you've got Eric All and, Mike Gesicki, or if you've got Sample and Mike Gesicki? I think the tight end is such an important position. And the fact that you've got a plethora of these guys, likely they'll re-sign Mike Gesicki. Right. Hopefully you get Tanner McLaughlin some run to back up Mike Gesicki, and you got hopefully Eric All comes back healthy. But the tight end is a position where we've talked about it time and time again. Not only does it help Joe Burrow out, right? You saw what Gesicki did this year with them, multiple games, 8 reception, 9 reception, 80 yards, but it helps the run game out a ton.
Yeah.
I was looking at an interview from the Browns. They were talking about the offensive line. They fired offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey, but one of the guys, I forgot who it was.
Andy Dickerson. Y'all remember when we interviewed him?
I don't.
The dude with the afro?
Oh, Malik, you remember that? I don't really.
The Browns offensive line coach, they fired him. We interviewed him, but I think they did it just for the Rooney Rule. But go ahead.
Yeah. We did.
Remember he had the afro and everybody was saying he looked like the dude that painted when we were like kids and shit. What's that dude named Bob? Somebody in the comments, like, y'all know what I'm talking about. He looked just
Bob
like
Ross.
that dude. Yeah, Bob Ross. Yes. He looks like him, the black version of him. But
I saw an interview and the offensive line was talking about, and it's such an intricate thing of how linemen, like this lineman was talking about how he loved being a pulling guard, and the previous years was pulling 100, 200, 300 times. This year he pulled the grand total of 10 times. So it's stuff like that to see, hey, when the Bengals use the tight end in motion, have a lead blocker, that's the type of stuff where I see, being the next evolution, and you just hope that they make that an emphasis. So just some food for thought. I don't necessarily have a name for the offensive line coach, but I think that even hearing some things like from Willie Anderson's interviews, just hearing how, just dropping back five guys.
He's dropping a name.
No.
Jim just pointed when you dropped that name.
Just dropping back
they
five
let they let my dog Willie come to practice a couple times now. Hold on now. They wouldn't do it though.
Just dropping back 5 linemen, and especially, I mean, you saw the week 18. It ain't a recipe for success all the time. So getting these tight ends in there to block, just some food for thought. But any other thoughts on?
What I want to do now is I want to get everyone's last just thoughts on the season.
Yeah.
Where do the Bengals go from here? Right. I mean, it'd be 9 months to talk it all through. But I do want to get to this really briefly. We can keep it kind of brief. Like, just your overall thoughts on the coaching changes the Bengals have made. What is your confidence level in Zac Taylor and company to get this right? I never feel good about a coach who guts his staff, and then kind of enters the next season with a lot of pressure on him. But not every coach has Joe Burrow. Not every coach has Jamar Chase. Not every coach has the opportunity that you have. To have a standout offense. They need to get this hire correct from the defensive coordinator position. They need to get these positional coaches hired, because I definitely believe there will still be some turnover on the coaching staff from the secondaries coach, because any defensive coordinator is probably going to want to bring in their own guys. It's going to be a little bit of philosophy change. It's going to be some personnel changes. How different will this defensive line look? That's going to be the biggest question. But Zim, I want to get your overall thoughts trying to wrap up the season and just where the Bengals move forward.
I feel like they did this all just to give us something to talk about.
I agree.
The Bengals just really love us, bro. But I can't stress enough though. Like, change is good sometimes. I think Lou is going to bounce back, and we're going to see him. And we're going to see him too.
Diana Rossini already said there are teams that are lining up to add him to his staff.
Yeah.
I know what I was told earlier in the year. First of all, let me just say this. As much as I stood on here and I stood the table and I wanted the Bengals keep Lou, I was made aware that this change was happening 2 weeks ago. I got a phone call when I was in Kenwood Mall that this change was happening. And
I found out after the Steelers game. I think I told you too.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
It didn't sit well with me. The way it was kind of like said, it was like, there maybe is a chance for things to turn around, but it more than likely that change was definitely coming down the pipeline. And I walk away from this season thinking that, you just can't have people like Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase have the season that they've had and not think and miss the playoffs. I will say a few weeks ago, and it's funny that you brought this up, Sean, and Iron Man XRP. I was told that Baltimore was going to be looking at the Lou Anarumo situation if he were going to be moved off of Cincinnati. Does that actually mean that they're going to go out there and hire him? Who knows? But talking to a couple people I know around the league, they thought it would be a mistake if the Bengals moved off of Lou Anarumo. Lou will have a job. Will it be Buffalo? Or would it be a team like Baltimore? Would it be somewhere else? I definitely think that we're going to see that guy somewhere in the NFL as a defensive coordinator this upcoming year. And I have a funny feeling we're going to wind up playing him, and we'll see what happens from there. But Zim, the floor is yours, brother.
I just want to say, I thought when I came in it was perfect because somebody was challenging. It was like, I need more energy. I'm like, where y'all been? Malik been giving you energy, but I thought that was crazy. You don't have to do that no more though. Like, now is the time. Never too high, never too low. Just like the cooler
Always
head.
even field.
You know what I mean? Like now's the time where this is what football talk is about. It's not about making all this noise and shit. Like it's now let's figure this out. And well, not really us, the Bengals.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm thinking you don't make a move like moving on from Lou, Hobby, Frank Pollock. I don't think you make a move like that unless you have some candidates already in mind.
Yeah.
And I'm very interested to see who they're going to interview. This, I mean, because think about it. You get a da-na-na, da-na-na, and Mike Vrabel's on the screen. Like, I'll be like, oh my God. You know what I mean? Like, so, like I told you this 2 weeks ago. I said, Lou is going to be fine. Lou going to be straight. Lou going to go, and we're going to see him again. We're going to see him. We're going to have some battles with Lou. We'll see him again. I promise y'all that. So anybody saying fire Lou, be careful what you ask for. I appreciate Lou. I want to say I appreciate all of those coaches, including Marion Hobbies of the world and everything, what they did. They gave me some of the best memories I've ever had as a Bengal fan. Me watching them win the Titans with the McPherson field goal and then watching those coaches run out onto the field and stuff is one of them. Like it's implanted in my brain until I'm an old dude, you know. But let me tell you a quick story. Funny. I was eating breakfast. We're snowed in. I'm telling my son, hey, look, I waited till I cooked breakfast, and at the end, he's 8 years old. I said, hey, guess what? The Bengals fired their defensive coordinator, fired the defensive line coach, fired the offensive line coach, and the linebacker coach, because he doesn't really know the names and stuff. I think he might know Lou. I don't know. I said, they fired all of them. And he's like, oh, okay. He like took his headphones off. He was like, what about Zac? And I'm like, whoa. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you kind of get it. And I said, why you asking about Zac? He was like, you think he going to motivate them to win a Super Bowl? I'm like, where did you hear that at? Like, you been watching my show or something? He's like, no, like, I just look at him. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, would he motivate you? And you're like, he plays basketball. So what do you mean? He's like, nah, he wouldn't. And I thought that was crazy. And then he said, well, okay. And then he said, well, what do you think is going to be? You don't think that this is the time? And it stuck in my head. He said, this is the most important time because now they got to figure out who could do all the things that Lou Anarumo did and then some more. And I was like, damn, and I just sat there kind of paused, like whatever. And so people that are like, yeah, fire this, fire, I understand that. But at the same time, you got to make a really calculated decision, because one of the points that Malik was saying is like, is Zac going to bring in a guy that's going to jeopardize him, as a coach and head coach or whatever? I don't know, but I would like it. I would like a guy that's on that level.
So something interesting that was brought up just now, and was that Uzi that said that?
Yeah.
He knows ball.
Yeah, it was like that. It was just like, yeah, I mean, he was shocked, but then he was like, well, they got to figure out somebody that could do what Lou did and then some more. I was like,
I think so. I want to speak to a bigger issue really quickly. Zac has to get better at, outside of Brian Callahan, who I think, obviously got a head coaching job because, the job they did with Jake Browning, but also as people know who his father is and stuff like that. Zac has to do a better job of hiring better assistants. This is now the second time he's had to change out some assistant coaches, right? And when I look at it, you look at Dan Pitcher. Dan Pitcher was not a Zac Taylor hire. Dan Pitcher was with the Bengals coaching staff since Marvin Lewis. Dan Pitcher was the next guy to take over as the offensive coordinator once Brian Callahan left. And the same with Robert Livingston. Robert Livingston, I believe, was with Marvin Lewis's coaching staff. So if you were to bring Robert Livingston, who was with Cincinnati for 8 years, I believe, if you were to bring him back here, that means two of your coordinators would be disciples from Marvin Lewis's staff. You ever thought about it that way? So that, to me, that's kind of interesting a little bit. And I think Dan Pitcher has gotten the most out of this offense that we've seen, and I think he's done a great job. I think that the next defensive coordinator that you hire, if it is a Robert Livingston, it needs to be somebody in here that can establish an identity with this staff. I look at the job that Robert Livingston did with Colorado, who makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. It remains to be seen what happens. But to me, that makes sense. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I think that just when you look at the rest of this, how the season played out, the bottom line is this upcoming season, this season has the potential to set the Bengals back or win a Super Bowl. I really don't know if there's an in-between, to be honest with you guys. I think that, and this is the harsh reality, right? I look at this offseason, you've got to add talent, right? Defensive line's a massive concern. We got to figure out, okay, like I said, look at the draft. At the end of the day, you're going to come back to week 1, and it's going to be Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase step back onto the field. You're going to play out of 18 games. I guarantee at least 8.
So I'm so sorry. I cut you off.
good.
I'm so sorry.
You good.
Black Panther, if you're saying no Marvin assistants, that means you're saying no Dan Pitcher. And if you're saying no Dan Pitcher, you haven't realized the job that he's done this offseason, because Dan Pitcher was a Marvin Lewis holdover. But continue. Sorry, Dan.
No, you good. You good. No, you good. You good. And I think that's the truth is, just comparing them to is also like looking at these coaching trees. I think this year's going to say a lot about Zac Taylor, and I really hope I'm wrong, man. I really do. The bottom line, like I said, is you're going to play 18 games. I guarantee at least 8 to 10 of those are one-score games. It's not just going to come down to talent. It's not just going to come down to who you got, calling defensive plays, who you got, as your offensive line coach. It's going to come down to your quarterback and your head coach in close games. And that's really what I think football comes down to. Like I said, I think you got to get better into your defensive line. I think you need a better edge rusher. I think you need better play from the secondary. But like I said, I'm very confident you're going to have one-score games. And you look at these teams that have done it before, Mike Vrabel with the Tennessee Titans. You look at the Baltimore Ravens, throughout the regular season. You look at these teams, the Kansas City Chiefs. You look at all the great teams in the NFL. There are great teams that can pull out one-score games and can win in crunch time and can out-coach other teams in their division. And I think it's going to fall back on Zac Taylor. So it's Zac Taylor's time to prove it. Regardless of who you bring in, I hope the defense coordinator can help Zac Taylor. I hope that defense coordinator can be someone that can motivate the team, that can, put together a good product. But like I said, we're going to come back and it's going to be week 1 and we're going to have holes at the secondary. We're going to have holes at the interior. We're going to have holes here. We're going to have holes there. It's going to come down to the same BS at the end of the season in the playoffs. And I'm confident in Joe Burrow. I'm confident in Jamar Chase. Can we be confident that Zac Taylor will outcoach the other head coach and will get his team ready? Because even something I think he just said, he owns not starting off fast. So if you're owning that now,
preseason,
like we got to figure that out. So that's my final thoughts. I think that this season has a lot riding on it. If you don't make the playoffs this upcoming season, if you have another bad season, and I hate to say it, this franchise will be set back. We're going to have serious
major. Can you imagine paying Jamar the money that you're about to pay him and then not making the playoffs? Whoa.
So it's
and possibly T. Higgins.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see how it plays out. I'm excited to see the free agency process. I'm excited to see who they bring in for interviews for the offensive line, for the defensive coordinator spot. It's interesting that change has happened, but it gives us more to talk about. And I'm just curious to see how we see the Bengals respond from this.
I got 2 quick topics before we get out of here. 2 quick topics. The first one is this. It's not even really a question. You know how they could kill all of that and all would be forgiven and everything would be cool? If they did what Whitworth said that they should do and what a lot of former players said. If the Bengals just went in one time, and said, F them picks, send a first round pick for like Max Crosby. I'm not trying to sell nobody a dream. I'm not saying that this is going to happen. But imagine if they just did that one move. And then you got Trey Hendrickson already in the contract, having like a Max Crosby in a Trey Hendrickson. Because you got to think that a team like the Raiders need a complete overhaul.
Yeah.
You need picks. Dude is 28 years old. I'm just giving you an example. But if they did one time, send a first for Sauce Gardner, send a first for like whoever, and just say enough is enough. And they just go get a top dog, put him next to Trey Hendrickson, and now they have a real defense. if they did that alone with the T. Higgins and Jamar Chase stuff or whatever, and all this stuff that we talking about, we'd be like, man, F all that. Let's get it. Let's go. You know what I mean? The other thing I was gonna say, that's one thing that was just in the back of my mind. I'm like, bro, we're about to have over $90 million in cap space. They can do whatever they really want. The other part is this. I want to ask y'all before we go, or whenever y'all go.
Yeah.
Who do you think just now, January 6th, 1:59 p.m.
Yeah.
Who do you all think is going to be the next defensive coordinator? Not who do you think you want, not do you. And I'm gonna say it how I started out the show. I think Dennis Allen is going to be the guy that they hire.
Yeah. I think it'll be Dennis Allen. If I'm going to say one other name, I do think that, and I don't know if this is the right guy, but I think that Aubrey Pleasant is a guy where I hope that it's not necessarily just the Zac connection, but he's the one guy where I could look at it saying, hey, if they're giving Zac Taylor the power, I think there's a realistic chance that that dude has a great postseason and they hire him. So I like the Dennis Allen. If I were to put my name on one, if it's not Dennis Allen, I would probably say Aubrey Pleasant.
Okay.
You cheated, Daniel. You named two people.
I hope it's somebody that's outside the box, somebody that's going to truly bring significant change and put pressure on the front office to actually add to the defensive, talent pool on this roster. If I had to take a guess, I think it's going to be, just to be different from y'all, I think it's Robert Livingston.
Yeah.
I think Robert Livingston would be the Bengals defensive coordinator pick. That's just my thought. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see. And I'm sure I'll be letting you know what I'm hearing throughout this entire process. And I'm looking forward to it too. Zim, I want to say thank you, dude, bro. We jumped on here and, I want to say way past the midway part of the season, but we said we're going to start doing this. I'm looking forward to actually doing a full year with you, man, of this next year, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've had a lot of fun talking ball with you. I'm sure we're going to be doing some stuff throughout the off season as well, but this is definitely not the season that we expected it to be. But we want to thank you all so much for paying attention to our content over here at TWSN, paying attention to Zim's content over at Cincinnati, and the amazing job that him and Ace do. We hope that you guys continue to support throughout the offseason, because just because the season's over, we don't stop. We keep it going. I'll be in New Orleans for the Super Bowl. Then I'll be at the Combine talking to some of these prospects, getting a good feel for what's going on in Cincinnati. We appreciate y'all so much. And as always, until we see you guys next time, I'll be live again, State of the Jungle on Wednesday. Then I'll be live again for the morning show on Friday. Who day?
All they ever do is win, so kick that, relax.